Hi there. Welcome back, sixth graders. We are moving on this week to a new article as we get into lesson 10. And this week, we're going to go back, as we always do, and review our guiding questions for the work that we're going to be doing, not just this week, but over the weeks to come on our topic around the natural world, really. The first guiding question is, how do human actions affect the natural world? Secondly, how do authors approach providing information and making an argument? And last, how does reading for research help me to form an opinion and make an argument? So we're going to continue our focus as we move forward. And today, you will want to have your lesson 10 out of your distance learning packet that's printed. And you'll want your lesson 10 note catcher along with the reading. And this week's reading, I've printed out for myself as well. It has a picture of a big whale on the front. And it's called Orcas Are Protected, but there are still too few of them. So why don't you pause the video, make sure you have your article and lesson 10 with your note catcher and a pencil. I'll meet you back here in just a minute. All right, fantastic. We're going to get started today with lesson 10 now. And our learning target for this lesson is, I can identify the argument and specific claims in a text. So this week, we're going to move on to a new article, and we'll work with it on lesson 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So we're going to do 5 lessons on this article this week. And it is called Orcas Are Protected, but there are still too few of them. And what I'm going to do now is a read aloud, and I would like you to have your eyes on the print as I read the text aloud so that you can come across any words that are unfamiliar to you, or the prosody. This is like the rate and the tone, when I pause and when I change my voice. These are things that fluent readers do, and it doesn't mean that I will be flawless. Sometimes I make mistakes when I'm reading aloud, and I might have to go back and correct myself. So stay with me with your eyes on print, and we're going to read together now. Orcas are protected, but there are still too few of them. It would be so much easier if the whales faced just one problem, but they don't. For many reasons, the number of killer whales, or orcas, is shrinking, not growing. About a decade ago, the killer whales of Puget Sound gained protection under the Endangered Species Act, meaning that they can't be hunted. Since then, scientists have figured out where the orcas go in the winter. They've learned that the whales can tell a Chinook salmon from a sockeye by using their sonar to detect small differences in the fish. Researchers have also seen the many ways these majestic mammals can change their behavior in response to noise from passing boats. I got to tell you, I'm going to pause there for just a quick minute. I want you to know that the Puget Sound is a place that's way out by Washington State, and it connects out to the Pacific Ocean. So these big whales called orcas, the big black and white whales you see here, also known as killer whales, that's where they live, and that's where this focused article is. So They didn't really tell you where this was, but I wanted to share that with you. So I'm going to go back now to the article, and I'm reading, starting on the third paragraph on page 1. The scientist's knowledge is vast, yet new research shows the region's killer whale population still is not growing. Scientists are trying to understand why the whales haven't increased more than they have, said Mike Ford, a whale expert with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as NOAA. In one sense, though scientists already know, new whale discoveries reveal that orcas face complicated threats that build on each other. Part of what I hoped at the beginning was that it would be mostly one thing that was wrong, said Brad Hansen, a whale expert with NOAA. But they all appear to be intertwined. 3 dangers identified. In the early 1960s, Puget Sound's killer whales numbered 140. Some scientists suspect that a century before there might have been 200 or more. By the early 1970s, after companies began catching orcas to sell to marine parks, the population had dropped to just 71. After capture was outlawed a few years later, the orca population climbed to 99 in the mid-1990s. As of last year, only 82 remain. The number of whales seem to be decreasing because of 3 main factors. These include a lack of food, the buildup of chemicals in their bodies from pollution, and disturbances from boats. The situation gets more complicated. These whales, it turns out, mostly prefer Chinook salmon, which are in short supply. In addition, noise from boats disturbs the orcas. It causes them to swim faster, work harder, slap their tails more, and hunt less. This may mean the whales burn more calories just as they're getting less food. New rules require boaters and whale watching ships to stay 200 yards from whales, but they don't always follow the new rules, said Lynn Barr, head of protected resources for NOAA's Seattle office. Pollution cleanup will take time. Meanwhile, these long-lived mammals already are among the most polluted animals on Earth. Chemicals from pollution build up in their fat over decades. This potentially affects their health and limits the number of offspring. Efforts to clean up Puget Sound are underway, but whales still take in old pesticides and chemicals are present in the food they eat. All these issues are even more complicated than they first appear. For example, some orcapods or herds are more heavily affected by the pesticide DDT than others. This is likely because they rely on fish from California rivers polluted with DDT. They pick up chemicals from pollution from where they're going, Ford said. North versus south. At the same time, other Northwest marine animals that eat fish actually are on the rise. These include seals, sea lions, and other killer whale populations. The northern killer whale population has tripled to nearly 300 since the 1960s. Northern and southern whales share similar diets. But Puget Sound's southern whales range from California to Alaska, while the northern whales travel mostly between northern Washington and Alaska. The growth of the northern population may even be helping keep the southern whale populations down. For starters, northern whales may have a food advantage. One thing we're considering is that the northern resident population may have first crack at the best salmon stocks, Hansen said. A lot of the West Coast fish, they come out of the rivers, they turn right and head north. Other problems make life hard for southern whales. 2 of the 3 southern resident pods don't have enough young females. This group already gives birth to fewer whale calves than northern whales. It doesn't take much to tip the balance the wrong way, Hansen said. Also, whales are born to parents within their pods. This can make whales more likely to have get sick or have genetic problems. Where do they go? There are many other whale mysteries. When killer whales die, they rarely wash up on the beach for researchers to find and study, Barr said. Instead, they just disappear, and scientists never know why they died. And much of their behavior can't be understood. Why do they sometimes decide to turn out toward the ocean and stay there for 2 weeks? Barr asked. So there's a lot that we do know and a lot that we are still trying to learn about orcas and these whales that are both in the northern and southern whale populations out near the Pacific Ocean. So now that we've read that, there's a lot of sections to that particular article, but what I'd like you to think about is, what is the gist, the basic sense of what this text is about? Just think about the gist. What do you think it's mostly about? And how do you know this? And then I'd like you to turn and talk, maybe with a family member or a caregiver, and you're going to be familiar now with the concept of a literary argument and claims. So the question that I'd like you to talk about is, what is the general argument being made by orcas are protected, but there are still too few of them? Why is that argument present here? What is the general argument? And what specific claims are made about this argument? They actually outline several reasons that there are still too few whales. So pause the video, have that conversation, and come on back after that, and we'll get into the writing task for today. Great. Welcome back. I'm going to have you take a pencil and find your lesson 10 note catcher, where we are going to write the argument and supporting claims that you identified from the article titled "Orcas Are Protected, but There Are Still Too Few of Them." So the argument really is that they're protected, but there aren't many of them. And you will see throughout the beginning of the article how they said that in the 1960s and then the 70s and then now. So you can do some counting there, but that there are too few of these whales that are called orcas, killer whales. And then your claims are going to be the evidence that this author is presenting as to why are there still too few of them. And that evidence is throughout the rest of the article and in little divisions of the article that have some other titles, okay? So why don't you take about 15 or 20 minutes to do the writing task on the note catcher, write down the argument and two of the claims that cite some evidence, and then you can come on back and we'll finish up today's lesson. So take time to use your note catcher and your article to fill that out with a pencil. Pause the video now and then come back when you're ready. All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much. You know, I think that there were so many claims in here that had to do with nutrition, like what the whales eat. It was kind of tricky for me to follow some of that because the salmon, Salmon, I guess that's a fish, but there's different kinds of salmons and it's not pronounced salmon. And so I was having a hard time with that particular word. But I guess whales mostly prefer to eat Chinook salmon, but they're in short supply. So one of the reasons I think the claim would be like, there aren't enough orcas, there's too few. And that is because their nutrition, they don't have access to the nutrition that they need. And they will eat sockeye, but they don't prefer them, right? And then that's a problem because some of these fish that are coming out from rivers are being poisoned by, I wonder if any of you wrote down DDT. That is a claim as to why the whale populations are low, especially with the southern whale pods or herds. There's a lot of vocabulary in this particular article, a lot of ideas. And I hope that you wrote down some of those claims that were about nutrition. I saw something about chemicals. I saw, oh, disturbances from other boats. That's really interesting because I think I know from watching other things like Aquaman maybe, that orcas and whales, they use sonar to communicate, and probably the loud boats in the water interrupt their communication and make them agitated and upset. They were saying in the article that the boats are loud and it makes them jump more and crash their tails on the water more and swim faster and work harder, but maybe they're not eating enough and they're burning a lot of calories. So kind of a lack of nutrition. Those are all pieces that you might have written about in today's lesson. And so what we're going to do is I'd like you to share your reading and really your note catcher writing with someone in your house that you've been working with today. And don't forget to read for 20 more minutes among your own pleasure, just around things that you're interested in reading. And take that time to maybe look for more information about whales or this topic or something else you're interested in. And then when you're all done with that, don't forget that we love to do this fluency practice where we would set a timer for 60 seconds, maybe a timer in the kitchen or on the microwave, maybe on your cell phone. 60 seconds is just 1 minute. And you would start reading and read for 60 seconds and put a little mark on the page about how far you get. You could count up the number of words and write it over in the margin. We'll do this every day this week to see if your fluency improves and you get further and further into the article every day you practice that reading. It'll happen because that's the magic of reading more. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. I hope you have a fantastic afternoon.